What's up YouTube? Sean Fry here from Broadsword Media. So I'm bringing to you the third episode of our Top 10 Tuesdays. This time around it's about the top 10 worst NFL coach departures. Most of these are firings, but I included a few things in here that weren't actually firings as well. Anyways, let's get this started. So even though this list includes not just firings but also coaches leaving, I'm not going to include Jim Harbaugh of the 49ers, John Fox of the Broncos, or Doug Marrone of the Bills. Those happened just now. I think those teams should have found a way to keep those coaches personally, but those are not going to be on the list just because they just happened, and we have yet to see what the future holds for these franchises. Alright, to start off our list at number 10, we got the Jets firing Pete Carroll after coaching them for just one season. That's right, the Pete Carroll whose Seahawks won the Super Bowl last year and has a chance to win the Super Bowl again this year. His one season with the Jets back in 1994 was unfortunate. He had a 6-5 start and ended up losing 5 straight games, but the Jets after firing him didn't improve at all. They got worse than being 6-10. They went 3-13 in 1995 and 1-15 in 1996. Yep, way worse. Now let's look at what Pete Carroll has done since being fired from the Jets. He took over as the New England Patriots head coach in 1997 after Bill Parcells resigned and had 2 straight playoff years. The team was gradually getting worse each year he was there. However, he later coached in college for the USC Trojans and led them to 3 consecutive national championships, winning the first 2 of them. After he resigned from USC, he went back to the NFL and is now currently coaching the Seattle Seahawks, and we already know how good he's doing there. At number 9, it's the Redskins. They fired Marty Schottenheimer after just one season. There isn't too much to say about this one. Schottenheimer was an amazing coach throughout his career. The 2001 Washington Redskins started out losing 5 straight, but immediately after that they won 5 straight and 8 of their last 11 games to end the season at 8-8 and barely missed the playoffs. However, even in this momentum, Redskins owner Daniel Snyder fired him anyways. And then the Redskins went on to struggle most seasons since then with a playoff appearance every once in a while. Schottenheimer, on the other hand, had some success when he coached the Chargers afterwards. This entry here is one of the reasons why not all of the entries are firings. Firings do take a high priority on this list, but some situations where the coach just left the team or otherwise were more drastic than some firings historically. So at number 8, Chuck Knox leaves the Seattle Seahawks after being their most successful coach at the time. Chuck Knox was the first head coach to bring the Seahawks to the playoffs. He was the first to have a winning record during his entire time as the Seahawks head coach. He left to go and coach a team he previously coached, which was the LA Rams, and unfortunately didn't go so well this time around. Also, the Seahawks struggled for a while after Knox left until they signed Mike Holmgren in 1999. At number 7, George Allen gets fired from the Washington Redskins despite every single season he had there being a winning season. When George Allen took over the Washington Redskins in 1971, they had not been in the playoffs since 1945, and back then they were under head coach Dudley DeGroot. George Allen revived the Redskins from the ashes of failure and the mourning of Vince Lombardi, whose last season as a head coach was for the Washington Redskins in 1969, and he sadly died to cancer after he had proved the team to finally have a winning record. But after another year of losing in 1970 under Bill Austin, George Allen takes charge and has winning seasons every year he coached with the Redskins. He even brought the Redskins to their first Super Bowl in 1972. However, they lost to Don Shula's undefeated Dolphins. So Joe Gibbs did take over as head coach in 1981, eventually after George Allen was fired. But give George Allen a break. He had to go up against the dominating 1970s Dallas Cowboys team that were always in the playoffs, had gone to 5 Super Bowls, and were coached by Tom Landry when he was still great and had Roger Staubach as their quarterback. George Allen is now in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. At number 6, we got new Browns owner Art Modell firing Paul Brown despite amazing success. The Cleveland Browns were founded by a man named Arthur McBride, who was born 100 years before me. His team had immediate success in the All-American Football Conference, winning the AAFC championship game in their first 4 years of existence from 1946 to 1949. Then this team became part of the National Football League and won the NFL championship game in 1950, 1954, and 1955. Guess who was coaching the team all those years? Oh, come on. Really? Guess. Well, you guessed wrong. It was Paul Brown. Okay, I'm sure most of you figured that one out. Yep, the coach they named the team after. The man who led them to 10 consecutive league championships, winning the first 5 his team was in and the last 2 his team was in. And 2 years later, returned the championship again, however, losing to the Detroit Lions. Yeah, those times were the total opposite of today. If you went back in time and told people back then that the Detroit Lions and the Cleveland Browns were going to suck for a long time, and in our time they pretty much, for the most part, do, they would look at you like you were some kind of alien from another planet. Those 2 franchises were really good back then. Don Shula leaves the Colts and has incredible success with the Miami Dolphins. This was not technically a firing. He decided to go off and sign with the Dolphins and stay there for the rest of his coaching career. Don Shula had great success with the Baltimore Colts throughout the 1960s, including a Super Bowl appearance in Super Bowl III during the 1968 season, which they were heavily favored but lost to a defiant New York Jets team coming out of the upstart American Football League. In 1961, they went 8-5-1 and missed the playoffs, but despite Don Shula having a winning record every season he coached the Colts, he decided to leave after that season to sign with the Miami Dolphins. This might have turned out to be a brilliant decision by Don Shula, but it really hurt the Colts a lot, which is why this is on the list. The Colts did end up winning Super Bowl V during the 1970 season under new coach Don McCafferty, and they did make it to the AFC Championship in 1971, but only to lose to Shula's Dolphins. Ouch! But after that, McCafferty got fired in 1972 for refusing to bench Johnny Unitas at general manager Joe Thomas's request after a 1-4 start. At number 4, the San Francisco 49ers fire Steve Mariucci after consecutive playoff seasons. This was a huge mistake. Why did the 49ers fire Steve Mariucci? He was their last winning coach until Jim Harbaugh arrived. It kind of looks like history is repeating itself right now. Anyways, Steve made an immediate impact once he took over the head coaching job for the San Francisco 49ers in 1997. In 1997 and 98, his team had winning seasons and made it to the playoffs. 99 and 2000 were his only 2 losing seasons, but he brought them back to the playoffs again in 2001 and 2002, which were his last 2 seasons there. Mariucci got fired after a power struggle with general manager Terry Donahue, which does make it sound like Steve's fault, but after that, Donahue hired Dennis Erickson, who eventually brought the 49ers down to their very, very worst in a long, long time. 2-14 in the 2004 season. It took almost a decade for the 49ers to recover after the firing of Steve Mariucci. It wasn't until they hired Jim Harbaugh in 2011 that they finally found their winning ways and returned to the playoffs, going to 3 straight NFC championships. Kind of ironic how Harbaugh and the 49ers have mutually agreed to cut ties after all that improvement. Sound familiar? Alright, at number 3, Cowboys fired Jimmy Johnson after 2 consecutive Super Bowl titles. What's the main goal when you coach in the NFL? It's to win a championship, right? Well, Jimmy Johnson did just that. He won 2 consecutive Super Bowls before he got fired in the 1994 offseason. Now, I'm no fan of the Cowboys, but I respect Jerry Jones. However, I think he totally dropped the ball here. I was strongly considering putting this pick at number 1. He got fired after winning 2 straight Super Bowl titles. What gives? So he and Jerry weren't getting along, I see. But what about the championships? So what if you weren't getting along with him, Jerry? He was winning you championships. This pick is only at number 3 because Jones hired Barry Switzer to replace him and 2 years later won another Super Bowl. At number 2, this one's a big one. The San Diego Chargers fire Marty Schottenheimer after going 14-2. Yeah, Marty Schottenheimer's on the list twice. Why do people hate him? He is an NFL head coach who should go in the Pro Football Hall of Fame someday. No matter where he's coached, he's been successful. A true leader and motivator, and a winner. He doesn't have much success in the playoffs, but that's no excuse to fire him after a 14-2 season. His team had the best record in the NFL. They were the most dominant team in the NFL. And they did this when Philip Rivers was having his first full season as the starter of the team. General manager A.J. Smith and head coach Marty Schottenheimer didn't get along very well. But what matters more is winning, and that is what Marty Schottenheimer brought to the table, whether he coached the old Cleveland Browns, the Kansas City Chiefs, or the San Diego Chargers. He did pretty well his only season with the Redskins too and got fired for that as well. What's with all the hate? I guess I see why some people say Super Bowl or bust. But he did end up coaching the Virginia Destroyers in the United Football League and won the UFL championship in 2011, if that means anything. At number 1, the Oakland Raiders traded John Gruden to the Buccaneers. So this is not a firing, it's a trade. The Raiders were not as good since returning to Oakland in 1995. However, once they hired John Gruden as their head coach, things really turned around. The Raiders went 12-4 in 2000 and made it all the way to the AFC Championship for the first time since they were the Los Angeles Raiders in 1990 and lost to the Buffalo Bills, who went on to win the AFC Championship 4 years in a row. That Bills team was destined to be second best. In 2000, the Raiders lost to the Baltimore Ravens badly in the AFC Championship, but that Ravens team had one of the greatest defenses of all time and went on to dominate the New York Giants in the Super Bowl as well. In 2001, the Raiders won the AFC West again, this time with a 10-6 record. They went to Foxborough to duke it out in the snow with the New England Patriots in a game widely known as the Tuck Rule game. Charles Woodson forced Tom Brady to fumble the ball, and the Raiders recovered with the lead late in the game. The Raiders win! Nope. The referees called it an incomplete pass. Brady moves them up the field, and Adam Vinatieri kicks the game-winning field goal. The Patriots move on, they beat the Steelers, and then beat the Rams, have their first Super Bowl victory, and go on to win 2 more Super Bowls in the 2003 and 2004 seasons. Despite the success John Gruden had coaching the Raiders and what could have been in the 2001 season if the call went their way, Al Davis, for some odd reason, didn't see any problem with trading John Gruden to the Buccaneers for some draft picks. And guess what happens after? Every Raiders fan knows this story by heart. The Raiders, under new head coach Bill Callahan, have an outstanding 11-5 year and clinch AFC home field advantage. But they go against John Gruden's Buccaneers in the Super Bowl, and they did so pretty much playing exactly how Gruden had coached them when he was there. The Buccaneers ended up destroying the Raiders in the Super Bowl. John Gruden gets sweet revenge against his former team. And to make it even sweeter for him, the Raiders haven't returned to the playoffs since losing to his Bucs in the Super Bowl. As anyone paying attention to the NFL knows, the Raiders have been one of the very worst teams since then. They did strike back against Gruden though. Apparently, the last game John Gruden ever coached, his Bucs lost to the Raiders in 2008 and then missed the playoffs because of that loss. After that, the Buccaneers fired him. Double revenge. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned next week for our next episode of Top 10 Tuesdays, hosted by my friend Jonathan Rossler. And stay tuned for my upcoming first video game review. And don't forget to please like, comment, and subscribe. And check out our Top 10 Tuesdays playlist to watch the rest of our already existing episodes.